Hey, friendo, Steve here. Welcome back to the channel. It's time for your hot takes to AEW's World's End pay-per-view. It went down last night. Our full review over at Going In Raw, the podcast, which is now entering its 10th year of existence, is over at the channel right now. And of course, we already have our star ratings over at the Friendo Club Wrestling channel, so be sure to check those out. But this is all about the Wrestle Juice community. After every show, I like to post a hot takes thread, so make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notify bell right here on the channel so that you're always notified when the hot takes threads go up. We're going to go ahead and dive into it because there was a lot to get into with AEW World's End, and I'm curious to see what you guys have to say about it. First up, from I'm Not Tiger Woods, says the revealing of Adam Cole as the Devil was underwhelming only because it was already heavily rumored and implied that it was him. The story just didn't have any real mystery to have a big impact. So as some of you who may follow this channel know, I called it, we called it over at Going In Raw as well, exactly who was going to be in the stable, because it just made sense. And I think it's sort of a damned if you do, damned if you don't situation. If it was a big surprise, like, let's say, I don't know, Enzo Amore, people would have crapped all over because it'd be like, wait, what? Or even somebody from MJF's past, like a Hammerstone or a Richard Holiday. Sure, there's some segment of fans who'd be like, wow, that makes sense because he has history with them. But for the larger audience, and including myself who didn't watch his stuff in MLW, I'd be like, I don't even really know what their history is. I know they were in a faction together. Even now, I forget what it was called. I forget. But I don't know. I would not have really been into it. Adam Cole makes all the sense in the world. It just does. Him and his friends and Wardlow, they all make sense. Wardlow was dropping promos for weeks basically saying I'm part of this whole devil thing. It's such a and this is one thing I will give, I'll give an allowance to AEW for. It's not easy to drop a mystery angle and then pull it off with perfect execution. I thought the execution last night was as good as it probably could be. If there was some mastermind writing and scripting this, could there have been more sort of ambiguity, more mystery to lead us down the path that it's not Adam Cole and it's on somebody else? They tried to do that, wasn't terribly effective. I also kind of feel like this story probably took some more twists and turns, or was elongated, or not executed the way they would have wanted it to because of Adam Cole's injury. I think that sort of played a role in how the reveal went down. That being said, it's done. There's no more silliness with the devil. It's Adam Cole now. And I thought that it was done as well as it reasonably could be. So I credit AEW for the reveal. I thought it was fine. But what you're asking for here, because it was already heavily rumored and implied that it was him, some things are just there and they make sense, and you can't do anything about that. I don't know if there was a better way necessarily they could have done that. I was fine with how the reveal went down. So maybe some people will talk about the Samoa Joe stuff because the finish to that match, in my opinion, was a little on the underwhelming side, but we'll see if we can get into that. Here we go. Elliot Smith says, Joe winning the title should have been a big moment, but with the ref acting weird when he ended the match and Joe kind of rushing away for the Devil story, it just made him feel already less important than whatever else was happening. I'm a huge Samoa Joe fan, a massive Samoa Joe fan. I think WWE dropped the ball massively with him. They should have had him beat Brock Lesnar. But I do think that this finish was not milked enough for that hot Long Island crowd, the MJF crowd. I thought this was a perfect place to do the title switch. But yeah, I kind of agree. The finish to the match wasn't milked to the degree that it should have been. The ref seemed a little bit confused when MJF's arm didn't go all the way down. I've seen some comments that suggest maybe the way it dropped wasn't. Sometimes these finishes come down to the smallest of details, and if those details are not sort of pulled off as sort of perfectly as they could be, you lead to something that's a bit on the underwhelming side. I have no doubt that Joe's going to be an awesome champion. I'm really looking forward to his championship reign. I love Samoa Joe. But when it finished, it was kind of a blink and you miss it moment. Like, whoa, wait a second. What happened? I thought there would be more of a milking of that moment. But I thought overall the match was really good besides besides the finish there. Shotgun Sean says, don't know if this counts as a hot take, but I bought the pay-per-view primarily to see Eddie Kingston win big, so I'm happy. I'm glad for you, Shotgun Sean. I'm happy too. I love Eddie Kingston. I think he's great, and I thought the Continental Classic was a big success, and I thought his match with Mox was really, really good. It was a big chop fest and a let's hurt each other thing, and I thought it was really cool. I thought it was awesome for Eddie to be the first Triple Crown champion here in the good old United States and AEW, New Japan, and Ring of Honor. So, yeah, nothing but good things to say about the Continental Classic and how that match went down. So you're happy, Shotgun Sean. Steve's happy as well. Marvell says, I haven't seen anyone mention it, but Hook versus Yuta is pretty good FTW match. I agree. I thought it was really good. I thought it probably should have been on the main card, to be honest with you, because I think it was in the 0 hour. Yeah, I thought it was a good match. I think it was probably maybe... I'd have to think about it. Might be Hook's best match to date. I don't know. I have to think about that one. But that was a good match. JMC says AEW relies on too many multi-man matches without stakes, and the more they do, the harder I'm finding it to be invested in them. The Cope Christian match and Moxley versus Kingston match were good with their story and history, but all the 8 and 10 person tags on pay-per-views just feel like a bunch of moves. And looking back, I can't remember. I know there's more to this comment, but I get the gist of it. I agree. I feel like the fact that this was Andrade's first and only solo pay-per-view match at AEW is a big problem. The fact that I think I saw somebody say Malachi Black hasn't had like a singles match in AEW or on pay-per-view, or I don't know. It's something ridiculous about him not having a singles match. Where is this guy's singles programs? You need more singles matches. You look at that Miro Andrade match. It was really, really good. Do more singles matches. Do more singles feuds. People love that stuff. The 8-man tag, was it 8-man, 6-man? Well, whatever the Continental Classic Losers match was, it was a really good match, and I enjoy getting people on the card. I think it's a good idea, but it just didn't do much for me. It was really long, and it was a good match, but there's just nothing to it. There's no stakes involved there. True World Order says, I'm interested to see what they do with the Devil's Henchman while Cole recovers. My prediction is titles for all, with Roddy beating Eddie and Wardlow beating Cassidy. They're going to do the Golden Prophecy thing. Look, I'm just looking forward to like a month from now when they're basically kind of like Undisputed Era comedy era, you know, like when they were kind of funny but still a real threat and still put on really good matches. That's what I want to see. I don't want Roderick Strong now just because he's a Devil's Henchman to stop doing the screaming of the first name stuff. That has to stay. James Forster says Edgy, Adam Copeland, and Christian had match of the night, but the ending I felt was unnecessary. Edge should have kept the title and maybe went on a Cena US title type run. That would have been cool. I agree, James. I did not like the cash in. I get it. I understand. Edge was the first guy to cash in, and then Luchasaurus / Christian cashed in on him. I get it. I didn't like it. I thought it was a good, clean slate for the TNT title. And Christian, I don't think needs the title. I don't. I mean, I get that it's his thing, but kind of feel like that was a really, really, really good match. And then they did the cash-in thing, and like it didn't really, I don't know, pop anybody. I think that should have been like a big moment for people. Like Christian gets it back somehow, and then Luchasaurus cashes in on him. Maybe that's how you do it. But yeah, I wasn't huge on that either. I'll be honest with you. Claus Techno's going to bring it up. Says the fact that Jericho is not removed from the card or suspended tells a lot about how Tony Khan puts his friendship with wrestlers over smart decisions for the company, proving once again that he is unprofessional and a rotten leader. That's a hot one. All right. That's a hot take right there. So listen, as we all know, or I'm assuming you do. If you don't, you can Google this shit or go on Twitter. Chris Jericho, yesterday, over the past 48 hours or so, there were some allegations thrown at him. Given that these allegations sort of exist solely on Twitter in a nebulous area of, like, as Tony Khan himself pointed out, unsourced internet rumors, unsourced Twitter rumors, I don't personally feel comfortable getting too in-depth about that stuff. I would assume one of two things is going to happen. AEW's either going to try their best, which is kind of what Tony Khan did last night, to just ignore, and see if they can get away with that. Or there will be some more fire to these rumors and something more definitive will happen. The crowd reacted in a major way to Chris Jericho because of these allegations. That cannot be denied. There were chants of NDA. There were chants of the wrestler's name that was involved with this, with Chris Jericho, dating back, which I don't feel comfortable saying her name because I doubt this person would want that spotlight again that's the kind of thing that if you're really curious about the details, you can get on the Twitter and find out yourself. But the crowd, this match was basically unwatchable thanks to Chris Jericho. It seemed obvious to anybody paying attention that the participants involved in this match didn't seem to want to be involved in this match because of Chris Jericho. He was kind of persona non grata here, if you will. There were all sorts of what seemed like could be communication issues in wrestling. They happen, but there seemed to be, as it pertains to Chris Jericho, some spots that were severely botched. And I don't know that stuff wasn't done on purpose. Look, man, I don't like to sling that kind of stuff at wrestlers, but it seemed obvious that people didn't want to work with Chris Jericho. I can read body language, and you can read the room, and I know how to read a room, right? And so even if there's still more work to be done in terms of behind the scenes stuff, I don't know that somebody should get suspended based off of internet rumor. I get the feeling there's going to be a lot more to this in the coming weeks and maybe months. It'll be interesting to see what happens. But yeah, I don't know that it was the right decision to keep Jericho on the card, given the inflammatory nature of what was going on social media. It seemed like maybe getting him out there was a test to see how much steam they were going to pick up in sort of the real world, I guess. I don't know. But I also kind of feel like an actual suspension probably wouldn't be the way to go because they are, at this point, simply things that are happening on Twitter. And I don't know what you do in that situation. Again, this isn't the kind of thing where, I mean, this is people's real lives, real careers involved. And this is some really heavy stuff that's going on out there. So I will say this, though. Tony Khan answering a question at a media scrum about the safety of wrestlers backstage while still wearing Tony Storm's goofy hat and sunglasses is probably the worst look I've seen in a very, very long time. He said later on that he didn't realize he was still wearing it, and it seemed kind of obvious from his body language that from the start of the media scrum, he was kind of dreading the Jericho thing, the elephant in the room, if you will. And so it's possible that getting lost in the moment and just waiting for a question like that to come up, he completely lost that he was wearing that ridiculous getup. For him not to have the self-awareness to be like, I probably should take this off when answering a question like this, I don't know what that says. I really don't. Apparently the AEW's PR person had to come out and be like, take this stuff off. So, tricky situation for AEW. What should be done with Chris Jericho just by virtue of the fact that these crowds are not going to stop. I don't know that this is the kind of thing that's simply going to go away. And I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen. Look, man, there's a lot that I simply, I'll put it this way. I've got a lot of personal speculation on this that would be wholly irresponsible for me to put out there in public. But I will simply say this. It'll be interesting to see what happens in the coming days, weeks, and months heading into the new year as it pertains to Chris Jericho. So we'll just go ahead and leave it at that. KP Trainham just said, Adam Cole gave off that "it's me, Austin" vibe. I disagree with that, man. I thought that Adam Cole played this up really nicely. I thought it was a good bit of performance from him. I don't think it's the same thing, but this take made me laugh. All right, we're going to turn to a positive comment about the show last night. Lindsay B says, for all the injuries, allegations, and last-minute changes that needed to be made for the show, it was still better than anything from any pay-per-view that WWE put out when Vince was in charge between 2018 and 2022. Sure, it may not have lived up to expectations, but I think it still delivered. They did the best they could with the hand they were dealt. Also, congratulations on hitting 40K. That's right. WrestleJuice hit 40,000 subs before the end of the year, which is pretty awesome. Thank you, Lindsay B. I appreciate that. I'd have to go back and see 2018 to 2022. But generally speaking, yeah, there is so much dog shit and underwhelming stuff that WWE put out during that period of time. Vince's last 5 years of booking WWE were awful. Absolutely awful. So I think I'm going to say this. I'm not going to say it was better than anything. I think it was on par with a lot of the stuff WWE was doing between 2018 and 2022. So I will give you that. Man, those pandemic years of WWE, some of that stuff, a lot of that stuff was tough to watch. And yes, you have to give, you want to be honest about things, you got to give AEW some allowance here because the injuries, the allegations, and last minute changes. Keith Lee had a match, and then it came out that, hey, guess what? I've been injured since September of 2022. I don't know if I could do this match. Okay, well, then you switch up the match to a Dustin Runnels match with Swerve Strickland. So yeah, you got to make some allowances for, man, they got hit with a lot in the final 48-hour stretch before the pay-per-view. They did get hit with a lot. It makes you wonder, in a different situation, could this pay-per-view be a more fondly remembered one if they didn't get hit with all that last-minute stuff? Manny HD says if they would have hit a chair shot to Adam Cole having the pay-per-view end that way, that Adam Cole revealing himself on as the devil on Dynamite would have been a more impactful reveal, my personal opinion. I don't know about that. I think people would be like, wait a second, on the paper you got hit with the chair. Why would they hit you with the chair, which can do actual damage, and then reveal yourself as the devil? I think people would have complained about that a little bit more there, Manny. Daniel Craig, James Bond, says MJF losing the title now appears like a decision made because he's leaving. With so much uncertainty in AEW, why wouldn't we be told as soon as possible that MJF has re-signed to steady the ship? Tony Khan even sort of dodged this question when asked about his contract status in AEW, saying he can't comment on MJF's contract status. He also was pretty coy about not talking about MJF extensively during the media scrum, which led a lot of people to think he's out of here. I kind of don't want to say how I feel about this because I'm going to look like a fool if he shows up like at the Royal Rumble or something. But I kind of feel like he did already resign. I think he's going away because he's really, really beat up. And I think they're going to turn a story into his re-signing. I think they're going to make it. He had already tried to turn into a story with the Great Bidding War of 2024. I think they're going to revisit that once he's back, asking himself, is this still the place for MJF? And then in a big babyface moment, he signs his contract. That's what I think is going to happen. But I wouldn't be shocked if he showed up in WWE next month. I don't know. Will the Undead S'more says World's End was just an overstuffed collision with 3 good matches. Oof. I don't. Real Life says, I still believe my guy Neck Strong. Max must be the devil. Shattuck says Swerve shouldn't have had a match, period. Not saying he's bad, but fans would have been fine with him and Nana cutting a promo for 5 minutes. I disagree with the second part, and I kind of disagree with the first part, but I half agree with it as well. I think that you could have done one of like 3 things with Swerve, none of which actually happened, because for him to annihilate Dustin Runnels' leg and then he's still like half selling it during the match and getting his shit in, I thought was ridiculous. And I thought it did Swerve a big disservice. I think that you could have done one of 3 things with this. Either Dustin Runnels comes out to take the place of Keith Lee, Swerve does the leg thing, maybe even worse, and that's it. No match. He says, I'm not going to lower myself to a Dustin Runnels match. I'm just going to destroy this guy. You either do that or you do the cinder block thing, and then you still do the Dustin Runnels shows up for the match thing. He's like, no, I can do this. And we see what happens. You fuck around, you find out Swerve absolutely annihilates him. It gets uncomfortable. He makes him bleed. It's horrible. It's horrific. And Swerve is the ultimate villain, right? I think that would have been good too. Or you put him in the big multi-man match with all the losers in it earlier in the show. And he just has a really good showing there. Maybe that's what you do. But having Dustin Runnels put up any sort of a fight after what happened to his leg, I think was a bad move. I think Dustin Runnels is not that wrestler who should be having competitive matches after getting his ankle busted by the guy who's probably going to be your next world champion. All right, so that's going to do it for the hot takes. Thanks, everybody, for sending them in. I appreciate it. Yeah, like I said, man, hit that subscribe button, hit the thumbs up. It's New Year's Eve. Be safe out there. Remember, if you're at a place and you go home like 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, there's going to be cops out. You got Uber available to you. You got taxi cabs available to you, or just stay at home. Be safe, okay? I know that's very dad advice, but what can I say? I'm a dad. We'll see you guys in the new year.